Richard Sherman's post-game comments, how did they strike you, Howie?
You know, I was up there last week in Seattle and had the opportunity to sit down with Richard. And it's the first time I've really spoken to him, one-on-one. And, as I said to him in the middle of the interview, he's somewhat of an enigma, because I think people have this, reaction to the things that he says on the field, how he plays, all of that, and all the things that you're talking about today. And then there's the guy that you sit down and talk with who's intelligent, thoughtful, respectful, understands the history of the game, and is someone that you walk away from genuinely impressed by.
Did you play with teammates who were like this, that needed this to kind of put their game face on?
Well, I think some of it is a product of where we are now in terms of coverage. I think players today are, when I walk out of the locker room in the 80s and the early 90s, you had your local, CBS or NBC camera outside and maybe a beat writer and a couple of other writers, and that's about it. And now there's, 14 satellite trucks outside of each facility. So these players understand the value of being, on television, in the print, in the media. And I think Richard Sherman is a guy that, like a number of guys from Seattle, maybe was taken a little bit lower than he had expected to be taken. And I think he's used that to fuel him. And we, as players, I think we all find ways. And it's one of the things I've said to young players. I stopped playing when I ran out of reasons to be angry. And when you run out of reasons to be angry, and most of it is created in your own mind, it's not real. It's a perceived slight. It's a look. It's something you saw on film against another team. You really have to. For me, I just had to work up a hate. And Richard does that. And Richard.
Well, give me for instance, Howie.
He's two people, Dan. He's the guy that I sat down and talked with, and the guy that I sat down with last night at our set after the game. And if you just saw that interview with him and Russell Wilson, you would put him in that same category as Russell Wilson if you just walked away from that interview.
Well, what kind of anger did you build up that you would take into a game? Like, you manufacture something?
Sure. A perceived slight. You see someone on a high-low block on film, or, he's a guy who maybe said something that you could read something into it. For example, with Crabtree and Sherman. Obviously, Sherman took exception to something that Crabtree said. You got to remember, it's a divisional game. And that NFC West has turned into it's a knockdown, drag out, add Arizona to it. And now St. Louis is, loaded with picks again. And, I think they're on their way up. And it's going to be a tough, I think it's going to be the best division in football again next year. And when you're talking about two teams that it's a pick-em on who's going to win the division, they split during the regular season. Comments are made, things are said, you see something on film, and you work yourself up into a frenzy over it. And everyone gets up for a game in different ways. Maybe with Russell Wilson, it's more analytical. It's more preparation. Peyton Manning, maybe an offensive tackle. It's the X's and O's of pre-snap reads and all that. But for a shutdown corner, it's me and you on an island. You're the number one guy. I'm the number one guy. It's the end of the game. And how dare you throw this way?